Hello and welcome, beautiful friends. I'm Kendra, and you're listening to the Renewed Minds podcast, the show where people can be heard, known, and cherished for their own mental health story. Welcome back to the Renewed Minds podcast. I'm so pleased to introduce to you my friend, Ashley Czank. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. Hi.
Yeah, so glad you're here, and I'm so excited to hear your story. So, my first question for you is, what is something that you are currently obsessed with?
As I was saying to you before, I feel like we're too busy to really be obsessed with anything right now, but just honestly Bible study. Like that is kind of my ongoing obsession. And what I do in Bible study that I get really obsessed about is I look for like a certain symbol that God uses and I search through the scriptures for that all through. And so right now I'm looking at like trumpets and how God uses that. And so I'm kind of obsessed with that learning curve and God's glory.
That's awesome. I love that. That's the best answer yet. Sorry, everyone else. Okay, and then what worship song has been speaking to you the most lately?
There's a song by Shane and Shane, which is a lesser known Christian band called Psalm 45. That's really personal to me lately.
Aw, that's amazing. I totally listened to that one this week.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know if it was well known. I thought it was like...
It's called Fairest of All, right?
Yeah.
Oh, so good. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing. Is there a reason why it's speaking to you?
Actually, yes. I didn't think it's kind of a long story. Psalm 45, I was going to go on a trip actually to go see some family. And I thought I was meant to go see family. And I prayed about it because I had a weird feeling about the trip itself. And I opened my Bible to Psalm 45 and it seemed like it was leaping off the page at me, but I couldn't figure out why. And so I asked the Holy Spirit, why am I reading this? Like, why does this seem to be for me right now? And all of a sudden, the part in the scripture that said, it sort of says, like, stop thinking about where you came from in your father's house, and because the king has desired your beauty. And it kind of felt really personal, like I wasn't supposed to go. And so we didn't take the trip. And then another time in worship, I saw something in worship that reiterated what that psalm said, really personal to me. And then when I saw what Shane and Shane had produced and I saw their album cover, I remembered actually a third witness of that. I had a dream and the album cover was in the dream.
Oh, wow.
Like that person, that statue of David in the album cover was in the dream. And it was a really like...
I have chills.
like a love kind of dream with the Lord where we were having a picnic together and it was just amazing. And so when I saw the album cover, I was like, oh my gosh, this is my new favorite song.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Just because it embodied all of that, like Psalm 45, that dream. And yeah, so it was really personal to me that way.
Yeah. Sounds like he's really showering his affections on you.
It was nice. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so jumping right into your story, I'm so excited to get into your story. When you shared with me your story, I was blown away by how you are still sitting here. And I'm really excited for people to hear it from a different platform. So yeah, let's dig into it. So tell us about your childhood.
So I had a great childhood. I have really good parents. I wasn't like abused really in any way. They provided for us, but I never knew Jesus. And it was kind of like debatable in my house whether or not God was real or you could know God or you could know Jesus. Like, I mean, it wasn't even really framed that you could ever know him. That wasn't even like a concept. So we did attend church actually at one point, but it was, to me, in my eyes, it was obvious that it was more of like a social thing and it didn't last. And at home, we really didn't operate in any way that was about God, or there didn't seem to be any relationship. So that was really foreign to me, the idea that you could have a relationship with God. I didn't know what the cross was about. And I kind of, from a very young age, had a belief about myself based on words that I was hearing. Basically, just bad things about myself, believing that maybe I was a mistake or I didn't have any purpose, or like just a really deep seated belief that maybe there's something wrong with me and I'm just here by accident. So that
Oh,
was a root of my life.
okay. So yeah, my question as I pulled the microphone away was how did that affect your mental health?
It was disastrous for my mental health. Like, I really feel for people who are raised under the mentality that everything's a big accident. Because for my mental health, like, it showed up more later in life, but it just made me a really reckless person because I didn't see any point to anything. So it kind of seemed like we were living to just fulfill enjoyment and to fulfill our own desires and whatever it is that we wanted at any particular time. I don't think I was a really easy child, but I also remember having a lot of strife between myself and my family, and I just didn't really ever feel secure ever at all. And I had no knowledge of a God that loved me, so everything felt very dependent on me. I just remember feeling a lot of pressure and feeling like life was too much. And I remember being depressed and things like that through my years when I was an adolescent.
So then how did you meet Jesus?
So the way that I actually met Jesus was that it's kind of funny because I was a big Backstreet Boy fan. So I had all these posters of Nick Carter, and I was like, I went to a bunch of their concerts, and that was kind of my deal at the time, and I went to a Catholic school at that time, but it was never presented to me to like anything about Jesus, really. So I knew nothing about him, but there came a school dance, and I was grounded for some reason, and the reason I bring up Backstreet Boys will make sense after, but I was grounded for something, and I was in trouble a lot, um, and so I decided to sneak out of the house to go to the dance, and I was caught because I wasn't like good at sneaking out, and I snuck out in broad daylight, like out through the front door. So I
Nice.
was caught almost immediately. I thought like they wouldn't notice, but I got in big trouble. All my Backstreet Boy pictures were ripped up, and like my parents were
Okay.
just beside themselves because they were kind of like, we have lost control of our daughter. And then they kind of deliberated about what are we going to do to like fix this problem or discipline her or turn everything around. And so the punishment that they actually came up with was to send me to a Christian school. And it was like a real Christian school. Like, they do missions. They're like, you have Bible class. You go to chapel once a week, and everybody there really believed. Like, it wasn't just like a religion. I was shocked when I got there that everybody actually believed it,
Yeah.
because I didn't expect that. I thought basically that Christians were just phony. Like, they
Yeah.
just had some kind of religion, and it was all they knew it was fake, but that's kind of was my viewpoint.
Wow.
So I was mortified that I had to go there. I remember like really arguing with them about it and really feeling honestly like my life was over. Like, I just had no concept of any of it. And I thought, this is social suicide. Like, for a non-Christian, that really is social suicide. That's like the worst thing you could do, pretty much, is go be a Bible thumper, right? So anyways, I remember the morning I was going to go to the school. I prayed because I thought, well, maybe I can get something out of this like horrible situation. And so I said, God, if you're real, make me really popular. And then like I thought, at least I can win at this. Like, if it's
Yeah.
going to suck, at least I can have some consolation. And so it did actually work out that when I got there, I had friends in every grade, and I was really popular in the school, like by my standards.
Yeah.
This is how I'm seeing it. And was in with the girls that I would want to be in with. And I didn't give God credit, though, because I just thought, like, because I didn't really believe. So I thought, well, maybe I really am that awesome. Like, maybe I'm just cool. So I didn't give him any credit. But what I noticed about Christians that really blew me away, and I think this is so important for us as Christians to think about, is that the first thing I noticed about them was their love. Like, literally, I was blown away by the fact that they actually cared about each other. Like,
Wow.
I came from public school and a Catholic school, and I had never witnessed the type of actual care and like deep concern for each other.
Mhm.
And they weren't like ever rude or mean to each other. Like I just hadn't seen that in adolescence before. And I was kind of marveling at them, like there is something different. Like it's weird. There's something weird that's like different and I don't know why. And then the other thing was um, when I went to Bible class, I really wasn't expecting anything. I thought it was going to be kind of like eye roll time, basically.
Yeah.
And I got into Bible class, and the first thing we learned was about Proverbs. And I just remember being blown away by the truth to it. Like I could just see everything they were talking about. And I just remember thinking, wow, I'm astounded that this is real. Or not that I didn't believe it was real, but that I'm astounded that there's something to this. Like it's not just all make believe. And there's some, like, it made sense of a lot of things for me hearing about that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, I didn't get to the point where I became a Christian. So then, yeah. So then I had some really great friends at the Christian school, and in chapel, I was like kind of making fun of people, and I couldn't figure out why they weren't making fun of them with me. But they didn't say anything. You could tell they were uncomfortable, but I didn't know why, because I still didn't really get that they actually believed. And then one day, two of them pulled me aside, and they're like, "You have to come to the girls' locker room and talk to us." And I thought it was going to be for gossip because that was the only scenario that could come to mind at that age for why you would need to go somewhere. So I went there thinking I was going to hear something really interesting about someone and kind of excited. And then when I got there, they started explaining Jesus to me, which I had never heard in my entire life. And so explaining that why he died on the cross, because I didn't know. I just thought, like, that's a really sadistic way to go. And if your dad sends you to do that, like, it just seemed very cruel and unnecessary. And when they explained that it was for me, and because God loves us and we're sinners, and that we could never bridge that gap on our own, even just the idea of God loving me was difficult for me to swallow because I just didn't feel lovable at all.
Right.
And I had so much self-hatred and like just feeling like I was a mistake, that was the hardest point. But to hear that he died on the cross and hear that he did it for me to pay my penalty was brand new to me. I'd never heard that before. And that really, I wanted to believe that so bad. Like, just wanted to believe that God did love me. And so I kind of argued with them for a while, and they were like, no, he does love you. They wouldn't let down from that. And I remember being like really overwhelmed by wanting that to be true. And then they asked me if I wanted to invite Jesus into my heart. And I had never heard of that before. So I was like, sure, because to me, I'm thinking like, this is not going to do anything.
Yeah.
And so it's inconsequential in my mind. So they led me through a prayer of asking him into my heart and confessing I'm a sinner, and of confessing the cross, that I did believe this. And that's when I believed, because when I actually said the prayer and invited him in, I physically felt something happen inside. And that's where I believed. Then I was like, I was blown away that there was anything behind anything these people said.
Yeah.
And so what I felt like, it's really hard to describe, but I felt like I had emptiness my whole life. And like maybe I was in the dark my whole life. And then when I said this prayer and I asked him to come in, I literally felt like someone had flipped a light switch inside me, and like my whole being lit up. Like I don't even know how to describe it, but I knew after I had said that and after I felt that happen, that I felt completely different. And the amazing thing is I didn't know I was missing anything before that.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize that anything wasn't there until something was.
Wow.
And so that changed my life. Like I've gone through like so many ups and downs and backslid and everything, but I can never say that I ever was the same after that, because you can't go back to not knowing after you know. So that is how I got saved.
Oh my goodness. It's so powerful and so amazing. Because you were like a teenager, young adult. Okay. So can you now tell us a bit more about your teenage, young adult years?
Yeah, this is actually like one of the best times in my life and the worst times, like Shakespeare, like the best of times and the worst of times, because it started off really good. When I first got saved, I didn't even realize how much of a blessing this was, but I had the most amazing church and youth group that I just happened to fall into through my friends. And actually, there were two youth groups. The first one we went to was really strong on like repentance, and they taught like biblical truth, and it was really solid that way. And I noticed some really cool things. They were both kind of Pentecostal, or they must have been Pentecostal. I don't even know. But the first one had a lot of deliverance, and I got to witness a lot of things that really solidified my faith because there's no other way to explain what was happening. So like I felt the presence of God for one thing for myself, and I had things happen in my heart that I can't explain, and in my experience in worship and things like that. But I also witnessed people being delivered of demonic things, and I saw like things that cannot be explained, like people getting delivered of suicide and throwing up tar, and like just random things, and actually seeing them changed, seeing transformation. And that was an awesome place to start. I think that youth group caught a lot of flack because they were so strong on holiness. But I actually think I gained a lot from that teaching, and I really appreciate that ministry. And then the second one I went to was awesome, and the church was amazing, and they had the richest, deepest teaching I think I've ever witnessed in a church. And just going through the whole Bible and digging out something from Genesis to Revelation. And that's probably why I study the Bible like that now.
Yeah.
But and just the love that was there, it was really strong on family. But the youth group, we saw healings there. So the youth group was amazing because and it experienced kind of like a mini revival where people from our high school, even the secular high school, were coming.
Wow, yeah.
So that was cool. And we got to go on missions. Well, not really missions, more like conferences. And I remember laying hands on someone's open wound and with other students. And we all lifted our hand. Like, I don't even think I prayed, but I just had my hand on there and somebody else was praying. And we all lifted our hands and we literally watched the wound close up in front of our eyes.
Wow,
and
yeah.
like it looked like somebody, like an invisible thread of flesh was like sewing.
Wow.
Which was really bizarre. And we just
Yeah.
sat and watched it for like 5 minutes until it was totally closed up.
Oh my goodness.
It was amazing. And there were just things like that, and that you can't explain those things, and you can never go back. Like nobody could ever come to me and be like, this isn't true. Because it's laughable, right? It's like I've seen way too much for that to ever be an idea.
Yeah.
And I would never want to go back. Like, he's just so good. There's nothing. And that kind of brings me to where I backslid, because when you backslide, you kind of believe that you're going back to something better. You believe, like, for me, it was, I need to get serious about my life. I need to buckle down and get serious about my life and figure out how I'm going to make money and what I'm going to do with myself. And this is all like just fun. And so I was kind of really deceived in that. And I was also deceived by this really poor teaching that was kind of popular at the time, where grace was really an excuse to do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And like an excuse to, it was almost like if you put effort into obeying God, that was evil. Because that was like not expressed in those terms, in more uncertain terms, but that was the underneath it. Is like this idea that if you're striving, like they use striving, which is not, I understand that striving is not the goal. Yeah. But if you're trying, or if you're, that somehow that's evil. And even if you have a heart that loves Jesus, like somehow you should just let go and do whatever you want.
Right.
And so I started to backslide, and it's amazing when you like dip your toe into the ocean of that you get swept out so fast. And the next thing I knew, I was like, I don't even know how I got here. Wow. Like, I was just so bitter against God. And by the time I left high school, I actually betrayed one of my best friends that was a Christian, like totally lost her as a friend. She was wonderful. And I don't even know why I did these things, and then my stuff from my past, where I really didn't like myself and I felt really, really rejectable and really purposeless, and maybe I was a mistake. Like, that whole belief was still there. And it was really coming up when I backslid. It was like, but before I knew it, when I was a young adult, I was partying, I was drinking all the time. I remember drinking to blackout, like every weekend. And by the time I met my future husband, I was also doing drugs. So like, I started smoking pot, and I tried other drugs, and it just was really awful. But by the time I got out there and I was that far backslid, I really believed I could never come back to God
Wow.
because I had seen, this was my belief in my heart, and what the enemy was really lying to me about was that I had seen healing, I had seen deliverance, I had had encounter with God. I had even spoken in tongues at that point. Like, I'll be honest, like, and so in my mind, I'm thinking I'm an apostate.
Right.
Like, I'm reading, even though it says tasted the full heavenly gift, and there's all these qualifiers that are not being met. Like, clearly I haven't tasted everything heaven has to offer and all of this. I had never been in ministry or anything, but even that, like, can be redeemed. But at the time in my mind, I'm just feeling condemned, like rejected, condemned.
Wow.
Like, I can never go back to God. And so I understand better, I think, people who are backslidden and miserable. Like, if you've ever met a backslidden Christian who is just really prickly and hard to be around, that was me. Okay. That was exactly who I was, because I just, like, by the time you get out there, you realize what you've lost. Like, you realize that was better, and you realize that what you have in the world sucks compared to that.
Yeah.
But you feel like it's too late.
Interesting.
So you feel angry. Okay. And that's how I felt. And so I was in this party lifestyle, pretty much destroying my life. I had another relationship before my husband that, like, I hated myself so much that I was, he didn't treat me, he was not terrible, but I just didn't, it was just not healthy in any way. And then by the time we were done, I humiliated myself and I begged him to come back. And I texted him. I was
constantly
texting him, come back, like, don't leave me. And just no self-worth whatsoever.
Okay.
None. Yeah. And he was like, I'm done with you. Like, Okay. But I was finding all my worth in that person. Like, he was my only sense of worth. God was done with me in my mind. So that's how it was until I met my husband, and then we partied together. Nice. So then I was drinking with my husband, and we were smoking pot together and all those horrible things. And I wasn't happy, but I was more stable once I met him. Okay. But it was still a bad situation. It was not fun. It sucks being a backslidden Christian. Okay. It does.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. That's really vulnerable. So I appreciate your honesty. So how did that all come? How did you pull yourself out of that?
Well, I didn't. I mean, what ended up happening was I realized that I wasn't raised this way, and I would like to make money still, and I would like to have some kind of a life. So I phoned my dad, and my parents are actually really wonderful. Like, they're not perfect, and I didn't have a perfect childhood, but he got me a job and an apartment and put me in college to do what I wanted to do in another city, which we still live in today. And I literally moved the next day. And he set it all up because he has a lot of connections. So he was able to do that. And I kind of pulled my life together in a sense because I was able to do school. I could get away from partying. I, for some reason, never became addicted to the drugs or the alcohol. And I even at one point saw a psychiatrist that my parents enabled me to go to. And I remember telling him all my grievances, and he's like, you're not, like, clinically unwell. You're just really unhappy. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's actually how I feel. I know that I'm so deeply unhappy. But this guy can't help me find God. Like, he's a secular psychiatrist. So there's no, like, I can tell him about my experience, but he's looking at it from a different point of view. So there wasn't much help there. But anyways, we ended up moving. I got this new job. I was making good money. I had my life together-ish. And we were still together, my husband, although we were just living together. And one day I was on the internet, and I saw a pop-up window come up of pornography. Mm-hmm. And I remember just being like, oh, I've never really watched that. I kind of want to see what it is. So I opened it, and the weirdest thing happened. And this really makes me wonder because I never really got addicted to drugs, but I did them repeatedly. Yeah. So it's kind of strange. And I wasn't even an alcoholic. I was able to cut it off like nothing, even though I was drunk all the time. So I really believe that this stuff, addictions in general, are just spiritual. Like, you're literally talking about a demonic mastery. Something has mastered your soul.
Wow.
And so when I opened the pop-up of pornography, like something really weird happened to me, and it like basically took over my life.
Wow.
And it was almost instantaneous.
Wow.
Like it started with curiosity, but within a very short time, it was chains. Like I was in total chains and I couldn't actually get out on my own at all. And so I would try because I wanted, like mentally and in my heart, I knew that this isn't what I want. And then I was kind of disgusted in myself. It had taken over my life, and that's no exaggeration. I literally, any of my spare time, any moment I had, that's what I was doing, I was watching that. And it wasn't even like, I don't want to be graphic, but like it was literally just the watching of it. It was like my eyes were captivated. And for some reason, I just had to see more. And I was disgusted in myself. And I was like, I know that this is gross and this is not the way I want to be, but I have no control. And I knew I didn't have control because I would really want to quit. And every night after the day is done, I'd be like, okay, tomorrow I'm not doing that ever again. And like, I'm not going to watch it. And I could not stop. I would wake up the next day and it'd be the same story. And I just honestly felt like, how was it possible I've lost all control of myself? Like I had zero self-control. And I had gotten my life back together and I had a good job and I was like all these things. And so I'm thinking like, how is this even possible? And so anyways, one day I finally kind of gave up struggling against it because I just thought there is no beating this.
Wow.
And I remember being in my kitchen. We had this apartment. I was in my kitchen. My husband wasn't home at the time that this happened, but I finally broke down and talked to God. And because even if I'm an apostate at this point, I'm thinking like, what difference is it going to make? You know, this is my life. So I just remember saying to God, I had such a heavy feeling of I've lost everything. Like I had God once and this is my life now. And it was just so grievous. Like it was so devastating of a feeling. And I said to God, I'm really sorry, but there's nothing I can do. Like this is my life. And I honestly believed I was saying goodbye to God because I was literally saying, this is it. Like, this is my life. I can't fix this. And I'm really sorry. I did say sorry. I said sorry to God because I truly did feel sorry. I said, I'm sorry that this is what my life has become. And I'm sure you had a plan for my life, but there's no way. Like, this is what it is now.
Yeah.
And so that was really probably my lowest emotional, like if I could ever say where you feel like you are in the lowest pit ever. Okay. That's where I was when I said that. It was the lowest I've ever felt, and I've been through a lot of things, but I walked over to our couch at the time, thinking nothing of it, like thinking this is it and just feeling really sad about it. Mm-hmm. And I sat on the corner of the couch, and something crazy happened, and it sounds crazy, but it really happened. Mm-hmm. And when I sat down on the couch, I was in white light. Like the room was gone. It was like suddenly I was just somewhere else. And I was in white light that I can't even describe because it's like if you could see forever, like just light that goes on without any wall or anything stopping it, like just forever. And you're in that light. That's where I was. And there was nothing else there, like no furniture or like walls or floor or anything. And on the right-hand side, there was an extremely bright light. And it was like it didn't even look like the sun or anything that you could relate it to. It was like the brightest light. Until you saw that, you wouldn't realize that the sun isn't very bright. Like it was the brightest light ever. And it was on my right side. And it didn't, like, it was Jesus, but he didn't have to say anything because my whole body, like, this is so weird, but I could feel every cell in my body. And it was like it was vibrating with his name. Like every cell in my body was literally crying out, or like I could hear it. Like I could tell that this is what my body is saying. Every part of my being was vibrating and crying out, this is Jesus, Son of God. Wow. And it was so, like, I had been in total misery. Wow. a second before that encounter because I was depressed. I was like wanting to die. I was, feeling condemned and hating myself and like all the things. And then when I was in that encounter, it was instantly peace. Wow. Like the minute he was there, it was like I don't even know how to explain it. It was just love, peace, joy, the most the most full you could ever be of those things when he's right there is what you feel. Yeah. It's like being in heaven. Yeah. Like there's just you could never have a care in the world when he's there. And I don't think I mentioned this, but when I was really at the end of the addiction stuff, before I prayed that prayer, I had been seeing an image when I was drifting off to sleep or just waking up. I had been seeing an image of like a shadow that's about 8 feet tall, and it looked like in the shape of a man. And I've since found out, I read a book that describes some of this stuff. It's a book from an ex-witch, but anyways, and it was a sexual demon that I was seeing according to that testimony. But I didn't know that. I just knew that I was seeing this figure, and it was every time I would fall asleep or wake up when you're just drifting off and you're like still a bit conscious, and I would see it. And so, of course, with my background in the youth group and church that I went to, I knew what it was. Like I knew it was a demon. Yeah. But I didn't know what to do, and I was like literally spiritually in chains over it. So anyways, when I was in this encounter, when I had this bright light who was Jesus on my right side, I saw that shadow figure again. When I was standing there, it just appeared, and I had zero fear. Like it had put terror in me to the point where I would try not to breathe when I was falling asleep. But in this encounter, it was like nothing. Like it could have stayed and I wouldn't have cared. Yeah. Because you just feel so safe when Jesus is there. Like it's no threat. Yeah. But I knew that we were supposed to watch. He didn't say anything again, but I knew we were supposed to watch. And I watched it shrinking. And I just remember like it seemed to take a while for it to shrink just because I'm watching this progressional lowering. And I remember about halfway through, what's going through my mind is like, how small is it? Like, how small is it really? And it shrunk all the way down to the ground until all I could see was like a little bug. Like it looked like an ant. And I knew like he was like, this was his instruction, but he didn't speak it out loud. I knew in my mind that I'm supposed to step on the bug. And so I did. I stepped on it, lifted my foot away, and there was nothing there. And then he actually audibly said, the only thing that was said audibly came after that. And he said, see, I've put this under your feet. Wow. And then after that, I was back in my living room, and the room seemed brighter, like just physically, it looked brighter and everything was different. And I felt radically different. Yeah. Like just no shame, no condemnation, like no, nothing. Hallelujah. And I have never struggled with it again in my life. Like not even a residue of it. There's not even like a temptation of it. It's like
with porn.
Yeah, it's like it never happened at all.
Wow.
Like when he sets you free, it's like it has never taken place. Come on. Like you don't actually have to struggle ever again. Yeah. And the first scripture that came to my mind as soon as I was back in my living room, it was like echoing in my head. He who the Son sets free is free indeed. Yeah. And I had always, it's so funny because when I had read that in the past, I always thought like, that is so redundant. Like, why would you restate like that? What? I don't understand. But after this, I got it because there's nothing left. It's like you're actually free. Mm-hmm. Like you're not even just free in terms of, I don't do this anymore, but I have to struggle. There's no struggle. Like you're actually free. Like it never happened. And so that brought me back to the Lord. And my husband and I, who were living together at the time, we decided we can't, we were convicted like about living in fornication, and we were like, we can't do this anymore. Okay. And when you have an encounter with God, you're like, I cannot sin against you. Like you just, I mean, it's like it changes something in you because you realize like this is the only thing that matters, and I can't go forward like this. Yeah. So we got married. Like we took a little bit of time to plan the wedding, and it actually was so blessed. And I got like the wedding of my dreams, and it was just like, it was awesome. But we got married, and yeah, our whole lives changed after that. And actually, it's funny because we stumbled into a church, like we hadn't been in so long. We stumbled into a church. It was during Easter when this encounter happened. And we are like, let's go to a church. So we went. And the funny thing is that we didn't check like what denomination, or we just randomly were like, pull over, like we'll go in there. And we went, I don't even to this day know what denomination it was, but we stumbled in there and we were like I was bawling because it was like he just like literally saved my life.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, it's Easter, so they're talking about the crucifixion, and I'm like, this really happened. And I'm like, this happened to me. And so we're bawling. And I was like, for some reason, I always assume everybody else is having the same experience as me. So apparently they weren't. No. Because afterwards, when I opened my eyes, I realized no one else is bawling or wailing or saying things like it's not happening, right? It was during worship, and so you got some interesting looks when you do things like that. And then I remember the pastor, when he went up to talk, he like handled it pretty well, but he was like, sometimes people are really like, it really hits them that God has, kind of explaining it. Yeah. And that's when I'm like, okay, so this isn't like the typical like Easter Sunday.
It should be.
Yeah. I was like, I didn't really care because I mean, it was so awesome.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what happened next?
So life was actually obviously like radically different after that. And my relationship with the Lord went from non-existent to just really rich and beautiful. And also because I just didn't have any condemnation anymore. So I was able to approach God in a way where I was sure that he accepted me after that encounter. Whereas before that would have been very difficult. I mean, even in my early years with the Lord, that probably would have been more difficult sometimes. And when I came back to the Lord after backsliding, my relationship was 10 times deeper. I had a lot of different cool things happen when I first found the Lord, but my faith was very baby faith and like surface level. I found it all very exciting, but it wasn't until I backslid and came back and had that encounter that I felt deeply imprinted by the Lord. So like moving forward from there, I had different kind of personal encounters in prayer and things like that Christians typically have, where you're hearing the voice of the Lord and you love the Lord on a different level, where he's like more to you than, I don't know how to explain that. Like he's more intimate with you than just like the distance you might feel when you think of God, right? Mm-hmm. And then when he encounters you, or you have that encounter, then it's like a deeper, more personal relationship. So the second time when I came back, it definitely was. And we did go to church, but we really struggled going to church because we never really felt like we fit. And then, to be honest, a lot of the churches we went to, like, because of what happened with the Lord and because of the fact that I backslid based on bad doctrine, I was really careful after that, because that was part of my reason for backsliding. So I tried to weigh everything by scripture, and that made it difficult for me to actually go to certain places because some places were really preaching a different God, like under the same name, and you wouldn't realize it. I think like one of the most important things we can do as Christians in the West is actually read the Bible, because apparently there's a low readership among the church, which is troubling. Especially since there's so many different things out there, you really have to be able to sift through it and find out what is scriptural. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be led in a direction that I was, where you are having something infect your mind to where it's ruining your life. And you end up way out in left field, not even knowing how you got there because you were so convinced of something that's not true. Mm-hmm. So we had a hard time integrating, but because of the encounters and the personal relationship, we followed the Lord even when we didn't go to church. And I know that's like controversial probably to some people, but like it actually, I had a deep relationship with God. And for me, it was meeting God every night in my living room, or getting on my knees in prayer and intercession, or just devouring my Bible and having God teach by his Holy Spirit from the Word. So we struggled with finding a church for a while. And then while this is all happening, we were trying to have a baby pretty much right away because we had been living together for 7 years before we got married. So we weren't really needing to spend a lot of time waiting to have a child, and we wanted to start a family. So we did get pregnant right away, maybe like a month after our wedding, like right away.
Wow.
And we were very excited. And everything seemed to be going well, but then somewhere in the pregnancy, it started to get towards the middle of the pregnancy. And that's where there was some bleeding and there were weird things happening. And when the bleeding started, of course, we went to the doctor and everything, and it became like a high-risk pregnancy in terms of it becoming a miscarriage.
Wow.
So I did go on bed rest for a little bit, but that was really hard because my husband's working through the day, and so if I need to get something and it's not there, it's actually really hard to do bed rest.
Mm-hmm.
But I did. And what ended up happening was, how do I describe this? I think I was going through labor pains, but I was in denial.
Right.
So I could feel it happening, but I was honestly, it was kind of I don't want to admit that this is happening, and I was trying to stand in faith to not let it happen. But it did happen actually in our apartment one night. Wow. Because I was just not wanting to admit that this was happening. Yeah. And so we lost the baby. The paramedics came and all of that. And yeah, so we lost the baby. That was really hard. And I don't know if you could call it depression, but for that time period, yes. It was very, very sad. And I was in bed for probably close to a week in the dark, not wanting to turn on the lights or get out of bed or anything. So I was just feeling so devastated, and I could feel the loss of the life that was in me, the child, and had so much love for it already that it was just very devastating. And so I just remember crying all the time. And I remember if I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would just cry. That was literally all I did was cry. Yeah. And I kind of was angry with God about this. Mm-hmm. And when the church or the people that I had in my life from the earlier church I had been to when I was younger that were still kind of they were on my social media, basically, when they found out that I had lost the baby, I could instantly feel prayer. This is so weird, but but I felt the presence of God because I was in, heartbreak, and he's near to the brokenhearted. But once the church that I had gone to found out, and there was all this prayer happening for us, I literally felt as if someone had put a blanket on me, of the Holy Spirit. Wow. It was a warm blanket, covering my entire body. And it was God's presence. And it actually, towards the end of my grieving and crying, it actually made me not want it to end. Because I was this is so... Aww. Just his presence was worth the bad parts. Yeah. Which, when I've been reading a lot of testimonies about people who go to prison in different countries for God, and I've heard people say that it's going to the palace, your relationship with God and the presence of God there. And I don't think I really understood that. But then when I think of that experience, I'm yeah, that, that's kind of how I felt. I felt I was so blessed by the presence that was so close of God that it kind of felt in a weird way, it was I don't really want the grieving to end. Yeah. So I did grieve for a long time, and then I asked God for a dream. So when we had lost the baby, they bring you a little box, and the baby's in it, and it's all covered, and it's covered in a blanket. You don't really see all the body. You might see the feet and the hands, but they had told us this is a boy, and at certain points in development, you can't really tell the difference between boy or girl. So maybe if I had inspected, I don't know, but the nurse told us that this was a boy. And so we named the boy. At some point, I asked the Lord for a dream because I just really was sad about losing the baby. And I wanted to see the baby and just have some kind of closure, I guess. I just really longed to see it. So I asked the Lord for a dream showing me the baby. And I didn't have a dream that night, but the second night, like the next night after, I did have a dream. And in the dream, I was standing in front of a crib, and there was an infant, like kind of standing up and smiling, like very young, but standing and smiling and like ear to ear happy and like just giggling and everything. And my hands were out like this, holding the child. But when I looked at my hands, they weren't my hands. And so I was like, that's weird. And the baby was a girl. And I just remember thinking she looks different than she actually reminded me of my sister-in-law a little bit.
Okay.
I don't know why, but maybe some genetic crossover, from that line. But I woke up and I was like really excited at first because I'm thinking God answered my prayer, but then I remembered that they told us it was a boy. So I'm kind of thinking like, is this what people are talking about when they say they miss God on something? Like that was my thought, was maybe that's what they're talking about. Like I just missed him. Yeah. And I think it was a week later. Like I was really mulling over this in my mind because it was a mystery to me, because it seemed too accurate to the prayer to be not from God, but also I understand that God can never make a mistake. So I'm like, well, how could he make a mistake about the gender? That makes no sense. So I went to the autopsy appointment, which was approximately a week later, maybe not even a full week, but something like that. And I was in the autopsy appointment, and the doctor told me that the baby had ovaries. Okay. She was like, oh, we found ovaries in the child. And so she probably thought I was so weird because I got really happy, and I was like, she's probably like thinking I'm having a breakdown, right? But I was like, oh, wow, okay. And couldn't conceal my excitement because I realized that it was God. Yeah. Like God had actually let me know that it was a girl before the nurse or doctor did. Wow. They had thought it was a boy. So that was really a confirmation. Amazing. Like if the nurse hadn't made that mistake, I wouldn't have had such a solid like tie-in of a confirmation. Yeah. So that was awesome. And then we got pregnant again. This time, this actually is a really good story for mental health because of how it ties into what I felt about myself later. But the second time we got pregnant, it was pretty much right away. Again, it wasn't long after. And everything was going well again, and I wasn't really expecting anything. I thought maybe that was a fluke. And for some reason, like I feel like God just orchestrates things in your life that don't make any sense for a specific time, for a specific place. And for some random reason, I was reconnected with people from that old church from when I was younger who were intercessors. Okay. And so I happened to be out with one of them in their vehicle, and I can't even remember what we were doing. I mean, I don't even know why I was there, but maybe I was visiting them or something like that. I used to make a point to try and visit. But I was in their vehicle, and we had to stop somewhere because I think she had to use the bathroom. I can't actually remember why we had to stop there, but we stopped at a place of her relatives, and they're all women intercessors who were there. And I had to use the bathroom, and I went, and I saw blood again. I came out of the bathroom, and I tried to maintain composure so that it wasn't obvious that I was upset, because I just didn't really want to share that intimate of a detail, but they could tell. So they were kind of like surrounding me, and they're like, what is going on? And I told them, and they immediately started to pray, and they were all intercessors. And these were people from the church that I went to that would like do deliverance and pray for healing and see all kinds of signs and wonders. So they're really experienced. But they came around me and they prayed, and it was really the main lady who was she was the oldest one there. Everyone at the church had called her Nana because she was probably like 80 something. And she put her hand on my pregnant belly, and she prayed. And when she put her hand on my belly, I could literally feel physically, like not even just any kind of emotion or anything, but physically could feel like electricity coming out of her hand into my stomach. Wow. And like, to me, it felt like I would describe it as lightning, but it wasn't painful or anything. So I'm thinking like electricity, basically. And I could feel that going into my stomach. And so I knew something was happening, and I knew I was getting healed because I had the physical feeling of it. And then she said something in prayer that I'll never forget. She said, I rebuke the spirit of rejection.
Whoa.
And this was, I had never heard of this before. I didn't know such a thing existed.
Yeah.
But I had felt rejected my entire life. Like, this was like, if I had to pick one issue that from as far back as I can remember throughout my whole life, that would be the one issue that is most deep-seated, was a feeling of rejection. And it affected everything that I did.
Yeah.
Like, seeing through the lens of rejection is basically everybody you interact with, everybody you encounter, every relationship you have, every conversation is through that lens. So I would always think people hate me. I would always think secretly that there was some issue, or they didn't really like me, or even friends, I would read into things too much to where it would be there'd be some subtle thing going on that wasn't really happening. And it caused me to sabotage relationships and be very self-protective. And as a result of that, be not very good to other people because I would be protecting myself.
Sure.
So then there was like a defensive aspect. But I didn't even realize how much it was affecting my entire life and the whole direction of my life and who I was around and everything else until I got free from it. And that was only the first step of freedom. But the amazing thing, one of the most amazing things about it is that after she rebuked that and after that whole prayer, I never bled again. Wow. So like for that spirit of rejection or feeling of rejection to actually cause my physical body to reject an infant from it is crazy to think about. Like that it could actually affect more than your psychology, but your physical body. And like people know that about depression affecting like physical symptoms and contributing to different diseases, but I think there's so much more to wrong belief and bad like demonic seeds in your mind that can cause physical ailment, because I was totally unaware of rejection being like that before. And so we ended up having our daughter, and we had a great pregnancy. She was a little bit early, but she was fully healthy and like she's thriving. Like she's very smart. She has no, like we've just had a really easy upbringing with her. She's been an easy child. And it was a normal delivery. It was fast, but nothing crazy. It just went well.
Yeah.
I didn't really have any progress with understanding rejection after that because when I was no longer in the presence in that environment, we got pregnant again and we did lose another baby. So, and at the time I had kind of didn't really have that contact with those people again, and I didn't know how to fight it. So I didn't know what to do. And so we lost the baby. And then this is interesting because we got pregnant again. But before we tried again, I had an operation because my uterus was actually the wrong shape, and that's why we were losing babies. And the thing I find interesting about this is that the rejection that I experienced my entire life is something that's down a certain line of my family that also experienced miscarriage. And so this could even be a, like in how something is hereditary, it could be like a family curse or like a family demonic root, because it would make sense that if they're experiencing that and that is the side that the rejection is coming from, just because I can see the symptoms of rejection in that line. And because I knew people obviously from that line in my family that they had this slant on things. And I know that that's where it came from. The other side of the family is not like that. So anyway, so I find this all very interesting because if this can affect your physical body in that way, that is interesting. But I had the operation and I actually asked God for twin boys in prayer, which is like a super random thing. But I used to do a lot of intercession, and that I still do, but it used to be really intense. And sometimes you see things in prayer and then you're like, I want that. And so I asked for twin boys and we got pregnant. And I was growing really fast, and I was like, I know God has answered my prayer. And when we went into the ultrasound, at first she just said baby, but then when she brought my husband in, she said twin boys, because I was thinking that can't be right. But she said twin boys, and I was laughing because I'm like, that's exactly. Well, she didn't say boys. She said twins. And then when we went to go find out the sex of the babies, she was like, "Do you want to know?" And I'm like, "I know they're boys." And she's like, "Yeah, you are having boys." So it turned out to be. And that was a huge, awesome thing. It was a miracle. But I wanted to finish the rejection story because I think this is so relevant. I think so many people struggle with rejection, honestly. Like, I've met them, I've talked to them. Like, this is a big thing for some reason in our society in the West, I think. Maybe, I don't know about other places. But I started to experience healing so much later because I didn't know what I was dealing with and how it was affecting everything in my life. But there was a prophet. Like, I knew something was wrong because I knew that I wasn't treating relationships the way I should be.
Right.
Or that something was just off and I was always feeling rejection.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to fix it. So I had been asking God in prayer to fix me, like just basically in like secret prayer, being like, "Can you just fix me? Like, I know something's wrong. I don't know what it is." And this prophet, we had been going to this church, and a prophet came in, and I just remember thinking I was like, I don't know what to think about this guy. He's so different. Like, he was kind of weird and stuff. but we went up for our turn to like hear prophecy, and he totally read my mail, and he was like, "God is going to fix you," which is so like not churchy. Like, you don't say that to people usually, but I was like, nobody would know, but that's exactly what I needed to hear. Like, that's exactly what I've been asking about. And so I was thrilled when I heard that. I wasn't insulted at all. I was like, this is great. This is what I want.
Yeah.
And I was in a church service. We ended up at a different church, which we're at now, and this is like our home church now. But I was in a service in worship, and I felt the presence of God so heavy. Like, it was like if some really heavy, like, thing, like bright light thing fell on you, and I could feel it. Felt like this heat and light was coming into my stomach and my stomach and my chest, like almost two streams of light. I don't know how to explain, or like, but it was physical, the feeling. And I knew something was happening, and I was shaking, and I actually fell over into my seat. I had a seat behind me. I just couldn't stand. And after that, I felt different. I feel like it was an actual healing.
Yeah.
Like maybe when she had prayed for me, like she rebuked a demonic thing, but this time it was healing. And like, I do believe it was demonic, but this time this was different, and it was like a healing. And honestly, I don't know how to describe it, but I can see the way I'm seeing life now is through a different mental lens.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking to you, I'm not thinking in my head like, "Oh no, she's judging me," or "She hates me," or like, these things are not in the back of my mind. Or I'm not self-protecting or adjusting the way I speak so that you will like me. Like, I'm not like changing my anything.
Yeah.
And or manipulating anything, nothing, because I just don't have that fear anymore. Like, there's not that fear of, "Oh no, like like there's something wrong with me and they're gonna find out," or like, none of that is there. And that was all tied into rejection, like all of it. It was that like root from when I was a little girl all the way through my life, that everybody is rejecting me, and whatever I do, they're going to find out there's something wrong with me. And when they do, everybody's not going to like me, or, that something it was awful.
Yeah.
But you get used to living like that, and then you don't even realize that that is your mentality behind what you're doing. Wow. Because it's buried back, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I experienced healing from that. God has healed my relationship with my parents. He's been so faithful to heal relationships and heal my mental state and give me peace.
Wow.
And it could never have happened without God.
Yeah.
Like, no psychiatrist could go in and like fill you with light from heaven, and or like make a demon flee, or nobody can do that for you. Like, it's laughable to even think it, but God in a moment can do that. Like, in a second. I took psychology in college, probably trying to figure out what was wrong with me, right?
Nice.
So, and the amazing thing is that you learn that, well, people can be in therapy for like 10 years before you can diagnose them. Yeah. And you're thinking like, what is the point? Like 10 years? But when you have Jesus, you can be free overnight. Like it
Come
can be
on.
like, it's like that when
Yes.
he actually does it, not when you're pushing for it to happen or you're like struggling or
Yeah.
maybe you're reading self-help books or whatever. But when you just seek the Lord and you just
Yes.
try to find him, he will do it. Like
Yeah.
he will just do it. You can go in as messed up as you are and just go after Jesus and he'll take care of everything.
Yeah.
And he can do it in a second to
Yeah.
the point where everything else is laughable. Like you could never convince me to go on some kind of medication or like I've seen way too much to ever I would never want that.
Yeah.
There's no better way.
Yeah.
Like it was just so our life is radically different because of that, and we have a beautiful family. We have a good marriage. Like we're not perfect. We have like God's still working on us. I believe that if we were all perfected, that we would be lit up like Moses and people would be getting healed in our shadow. So like none of us are there. Like nobody can be like, "Oh, I made it." And
Yeah.
but God is still faithful to be doing these things in us.
Yeah.
And he walked with me through, like, think of the encounter that I had, and I still had all these things going on. And through all those years to walk me through all those things.
Yeah.
He's so faithful.
So faithful.
And he won't forget. He won't forget that you have a problem. He will fix it.
Yeah.
He's so faithful.
Oh my goodness. Hallelujah. That is huge.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna, in my head, I had already prepared that I was gonna name this podcast Freedom from Pornography, but I don't even know if that fits because I feel like it's like freedom from the spirit of rejection and pornography, just in caption, and so that's because that's huge. I feel like that is the message that I want to send out today is to people, like, because I know I've even struggled with having those thoughts in my head while I'm talking to other people, right? So I think this is big. I think that this is bigger than we realize, and so I'm so thankful that you came and shared that with us. Yeah. So my final question to you is, if someone came to you and they said that they were struggling with mental health, what would you say?
I would say that they need to choose Jesus. Like just literally forget. I mean, we all struggle with things, but just go after Jesus because he will take care of all of the things. And you can come to him just as you are. Like no matter what mental health you're in, if you call Jesus in, if you say, Jesus, come into my life, he will. Like he will meet you in the darkest place. And when nobody else, like when I was in that place, in that pit of pornography, like nobody would have wanted to be around me. There was nothing good about me. Like I can't imagine, I didn't want to be around myself. Like I was like, I don't even want to be me, let alone, people wanting to be around me. But he showed up in the most powerful way, like, and he didn't reject me or condemn me at all. When he came in, all he did was love me. Like in that encounter, it was like straight love and acceptance and peace and power. Like there was no lack of anything and no lack of power, but that he would meet you there if you're struggling in some mental health way or in any way, really. He will meet you in that place. There's no way you can make yourself better. Like you can't try to become better and then find Jesus. You have to meet him where you are. Yeah. And you have to let him love you where you are. Yeah. And then like ask him to do these things. If you're struggling with depression, ask him to set you free from that. Or if it's rejection or if it's pornography or whatever, you really have to put your eyes on him. Yeah. Instead of those things, because you actually cannot do it on your own. Like you just can't. You can try, but it won't work. Yeah. That is the truth.
That's a good word. Thank you so much, Ashley, for coming and sharing your story. It's so powerful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you for joining us on the Renewed Minds podcast. If you're struggling with mental health and it's a real issue, I want to connect with you. So you can find me on YouTube or on Instagram with Blessed by Grace Coaching. And that's my goal in life, is to share with as many people that the good news is that Jesus can set you free from your mental health. So I want you to remember that, and don't forget, you are loved.